All right, we continue with email. So we will talk about SMTP and IMAP protocols. Three major components of email are as follows: user agents, so we are the ones who want to check our emails; mail servers that we use to send and receive emails; and simple mail transfer protocol, SMTP. So mail servers communicate with each other using these protocols. So as an agent, you don't send the mail, you tell your mail server to send the mail, and they use SMTP to communicate with other mail servers. User agent, also known as mail reader, composing, editing, reading mail messages. So we have software like Microsoft Outlook. You can use iPhone mail client, so on. But people generally no longer use this kind of applications, right? Because people prefer web-based email. This is why we use, Gmail and so on, which feels like easier, right? Outgoing and incoming messages stored on the server. So it is not always on your phone. A copy is always on the server. So you can delete the copy on the server, but this means that it is lost forever, because if something happens to your device, for instance, your Outlook account or so on, this means that you cannot return that mail back. So if we look at the mail servers, mailbox contains incoming messages for users. So there's a message queue of outgoing to be sent mail messages. SMTP protocol between mail servers to send email messages. Client sending mail server, server receiving mail server. So this way, because it is one-way application, right? So uses TCP to reliably transfer emails message from client mail server initiating connection to server. Uses port 25 if you don't have any encryption. This is important. So if you are listening to 25, most probably you can get the plain text message and so on. Direct transfer sending server acting like client to receiving server. So we have classic TCP connection initiation. Then three phases of transfer: SMTP handshaking. So this hello is not a typo, it is the abbreviation of hello. So it is used in the handshaking. Then you transfer messages. So at one connection, actually, if there are more than one mail to this mail server, you can actually send them here. Okay, you don't have to re-establish the SMTP handshaking. So commands are in ASCII text because this is a very old protocol. There are some, things you have to convert and so on. So encoding sometimes is a problem here. Like they use 7-bit ASCII and so on. So this is why in Turkey still people are having problem with emails, because Turkish characters are not in the ASCII table. So we still receive emails where people don't use Turkish characters because they cannot, show them properly and so on. And the response is status code and phrases. So here's an example scenario. Alice sends email to Bob. Alice uses U8 to compose email message, user agent, to Bob at some school.edu. So Alice's device actually sends the message to her mail server using SMTP. Message placed in message queue. Client side of SMTP at mail server opens TCP connection with Bob's mail server. And this time SMTP client sends Alice message over the TCP connection here. At the fifth one, Bob's mail server places the message in Bob's mailbox. Of course, here this is a pull request, not a push, because you send the mail and mail stays there because Bob might be offline, right? But whenever Bob wants to read this email, Bob invokes his agent to read the mail, right? Then you receive the mail. This is why you don't have to be online all the time. Sample SMTP interaction. So S for server, this is returns this message. So client says hello and tells you the address, and server says hello. So this is a mail from Frankfurt to maybe United States or Germany. Okay. So now client sends the mail. This server says okay again. So you send each line one by one. This way, at the end, you have to send a comma saying that the message finished here as a new line. So a message accepted for delivery. This is the returning message from the server. So this is a simple SMTP interaction. And you can, check this kind of stuff in Wireshark. So observations, comparison with HTTP. HTTP is a client pull, but SMTP is client push because you are sending the mail now. At the HTTP, you want to visit the web page, so you're requesting to, pulling the web page information. You are pushing the email. That is one difference. Both have ASCII command response interaction with status codes. HTTP, each object encapsulated in its own response message. SMTP, multiple objects sent in multi-part message. But don't forget that, email is older than HTTP historically. SMTP uses persistent connections. SMTP requires message, header, and body to be in 7-bit ASCII. Here is the problem, as you can see. SMTP server uses this command to determine end of message. So this, the comma I showed you actually is this keystrokes which determines the, end of the mail. So SMTP protocol for exchanging email messages defined in this RFC, like this RFC defines HTTP. RFC 2022 defines syntax for email message itself, like HTML defines syntax for web documents. So this is determine the header lines and, to, from are must. You can actually leave the subject. I mean, you don't have to have a subject line. These lines within the body of email messages are different from SMTP mail from RCTP to commands. So then you put your body and the ASCII characters on. Of course, you solve these problems in the application sites. This is why we can send as actually different encodings and so on. So retrieving email is somewhat different than sending, right? Because you are using SMTP protocol to send this. Now you want to read your email. You don't need to use the SMTP because you're not sending anything. Now you need a different method to read it. So one way is, of course, using HTTP. For instance, if you are using Gmail, you are using HTTP because you are using the HTTP protocol to read your emails. But there are some other methods like IMAP or POP3. IMAP is Internet Mail Access Protocol, again defined in this RFC. Messages stored on server. IMAP provides retrieval deletion folders of stored messages on the server. So IMAP is actually a real mapping from the server to your user agent. So whenever you read the mail on your Outlook, if you connected it with the IMAP protocol, unread email turns into read. So you also send this information to server, and in the server side, it becomes also read, okay? So if you delete it on the user agent, it also deletes in the server side. This is important because think that this is somewhat different. For instance, maybe if you are using POP3, so this actually clones the emails on the server to the user agent. So if you delete it in your user agent side, it doesn't affect the server side. Okay, this is why if you are using both POP3 and also HTTP, for instance, in the POP3 you use Outlook. There's a POP3 communication. You receive all of your emails, you read them, deleted them, and so on. But later on, you said that let's visit my emails using the HTTP, like Horde or Square mail. So you visit there and you realize that all of your emails stay unread. This is because POP3 is not a direct mapping, but IMAP is. So this is important because when you're downloading with IMAP, there's an option saying that don't reserve the original mails on the server side. If you do that, you actually delete all of your emails on the server and download it into your computer. And if your computer crashes, you lose all of your emails. So you have to, this happened many times, so you have to ask the service provider to, go back to the most recent backup so that they can, read some of their mails. So HTTP side is Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo Mail, etc. provides web-based interface on top of SMTP to send or IMAP or POP3 email messages. Okay. Again, these are not directly encrypted, so you have to use SSL TLS to send emails and receive them in an encrypted way. So this concludes our discussion of emails. Next time we will continue with DNS and then maybe move on to transport layer, right?